Hello everyone, and welcome back to another recorded game analysis. This is going to be a game I played against CN Burns some time ago. He's a 2K1 level player, and the point of this series is so that newer players will be able to analyze their own recorded games, and hopefully you can learn something from watching these recorded games of me playing someone else. And I can analyze what I did good, what I did bad, and hopefully try to improve. This is not what you want to do when you start as the Chinese, by the way. So this is Chinese versus Koreans. And the map we're playing on is Kilimanjaro, one of the African Kingdoms maps. Now, the Chinese start messes up a lot of people, and I typically don't have too much trouble with it, as just at my skill level, it gets a lot easier to play as the Chinese. But this is not what you want to do when you play as Chinese. Have one of these green villagers stand behind a green tree and forget about him for some time. I was laughing. That's pretty funny. Because that really screws you up with the Chinese. Now, word of advice, if you ever have a bad start, make sure you tell your opponent about it, like, right away. That way you have an excuse if you're going to lose the game. Here's some life pro tips for you. He's laughing, Chinese. So, you start out with the Chinese with 6 villagers, and you start out with no food. This can screw you up a lot of time if you don't find your sheep, or in this case, goats, right away. Luckily, the expansions, the extra line of sight on the town center does help with that. Just make sure to try to be efficient with your scout. Move your scout right away. That's the most important thing when you play as Chinese. Just move your scout right away. You can also scout with your villagers a bit. When you play as Chinese, only make a single house. Normally you make double houses, but the town center actually counts for some of that extra population space, since their town centers have 5 extra population space. And if you make 2 houses, you actually won't have enough wood for a lumber camp if you're not playing on the expansions. So just force a habit, make the one house. But move the scout first. That's the most important thing. If you don't find your sheep, nice and early, by the time that house is up, make sure you scout with your villagers. And make sure you place all 6 on those sheep right away. And get loom right away. A lot of players, they like to go 7 villagers on goat just at the beginning stage, just to make sure they get their food economy rolling. And make sure to force drop a lot. Because every second of idle time really makes a big difference in the early game. How it typically works out with Chinese at least a higher level play is that the Chinese actually, they start out as like a resource disadvantage in the early game, but they end up going up to the next stage with about 1 villager extra than other civilizations, which turns into an eco advantage. So it's a very weird civ, and because of that, you can do a little bit weird strategies, like going straight archers instead of drushing. Food tends to run out pretty quickly for the Chinese if you're trying to go into a drush build. So most of the time with the Chinese, it's either going to be a stable, or like for scouts, or it's going to be just a single straight archery range. Now I'm looking at my map. That'll help decide what kind of strategy I do. I believe scouts would be the best option here because my map is fairly open. Now scouts work really well on open maps. They can get, they're very mobile. It's a very early aggressive strategy. You don't have to worry about turtling up like you do with archers. But, yeah, scouts are probably going to be the best option here, especially on a map like Kilimanjaro, which is even more open than Arabia. The more open the map is, the more likely you're going to go for scouts, as long as you get that Bloodlines upgrade, which the Chinese do. Now, the civilization I am playing against is going to be Koreans here, CN Burns. I just know from experience, knowing the player, Burns is not like the guy to tower rush you so much. But it's definitely on the cards for the Koreans, especially in the expansions where those towers get up earlier. So I do want to be very careful with my scout. Make sure to find any villagers if they do go forward. That would be very important for me. And there we go. That should be easier for you guys to see. So I want to go scout out CN Burns, see if his build looks like he's going to go for a tower rush build. The Koreans most likely will go for a Dark Age rush into archers because they don't get good scouts. They don't get bloodlines. So that probably puts me at an advantage being a scout civ. Now, Kilimanjaro and Serengeti are kind of weird maps as far as food. You get a ton of deer, you get a berry bush with 4 fruit bushes. Normally you get like 5 or 6, I can't remember which. And you only get a single elephant with extra food. This means that it's harder to get up to the next stage because I think overall, either you have less food or the food is less successful. Also, you only have like 6 goats or something. So your builds have to be spot on when you play on these kinds of maps, Kilimanjaro or Serengeti. I would definitely recommend building a mill both on the berries or the fruit bush and on the zebra. I think it just might take too long to lure these guys in. If you want to lure them, go ahead. I believe there's a second hunt as well on these maps. But maybe not on this one. Usually there's ostrich patch as well. And don't be afraid to seed up 2 or 3 farms on these maps, because it's really, really hard to get up to the next age. Especially with Chinese. I wonder how I did this with Chinese. I think it's such a disadvantage, honestly, on these kinds of maps. I think this guy's over here. No, I don't know what this guy's doing. I was thinking about maybe walling. Yeah, there he goes. He's going to wall with houses. So I'm going to try to make the best out of this map. Try to close it off as much as possible. And that's what you want to do with every map, whether it's open or a closed map. Walling is a very essential part of the game. So I'm at 22 population right now. I should be clicking up to the next age. I'm going to get a few volleys off on this scout, which is good. And I will be up at about 24 population, I believe, with 4 farms. 4 farms is a lot for the Dark Age. One of the nice tidbits with Chinese, though, doesn't hurt as much to make Dark Age farms, because one of the Chinese eco bonuses is that their farms get an extra 45 food, which particularly helps out in the Dark Age. So don't be afraid if you need to seed up an extra farm or 2 with the Chinese, although you should always be careful. You should always try to, put your resources where you need them. And there you go. I'm going to go up on 24 population, which isn't... I don't even know if that's late for Chinese. Chinese like to get up on those higher population numbers. Although 23 is probably the average you want to go with Chinese. Again, a bit of a weird civilization in the Dark Age. CN Burns is up at 24 population, and he's already mining gold, so we already know what Burns is going to do. He's going to do archers. There's no other options for him. He hasn't sent forward villagers to build towers. And his build's a little bit different than mine. He has not seeded any farms, and he has not taken his berry bush. I'm not sure how he got up so quickly, though. I mean, perhaps if we were to watch this recorded game one more time, maybe we could figure it out. But not the biggest deal. Not the biggest deal in the world. And in fact, his build looks pretty fine. He's going to be a little bit low on food. You see he's only at up 100 food. He's going to want to get that bit axe upgrade, the horse collar upgrade. For that, you need about 250 food when you're there, and you want to make a villager. So he's going to be a little low. Might have been in his best interest to maybe make 1 farm. But he's going to have a good amount of wood, which is good. He's going to be able to go up with 2 ranges straight away, which is what you want to do when you go for straight archers. You really want to have 2 ranges up right away. If you don't get 2 ranges up right away, you might as well have gone 1 or 2 pop more higher up to the Feudal Age, so you could have afforded the 2nd range right away. Here I am. And let's see me drop down that stable. It's the only option that makes sense at this stage with 4 farmers since the Dark Age. And here I go. Always build your stables with at least 2 villagers. A lot of players like to do it with 3. But never 1. Never 1 villager. And I'm getting my eco upgrades right away. Now every villager that'll come out here will be able to build a farm. I just saw my wood drop. It looks like for the palisade walls, maybe? I'm going to try to wall it up as best as I can. Try to wall in through here. That way any units will have to go past the town center. And units will have to go past the town center here and hopefully wall over here. So at least that means I have to focus on one area on the map, the left side of my map, and my gold should be relatively safe. Also on these kinds of maps, where basically these kinds of maps, I mean Serengeti or Kilimanjaro, where the wood is absolutely ridiculous how the villagers get the wood. Very important you check back on your lumberjacks every now and then and micro them to the most efficient tree, because it will save you tons of wood over the long term. Did I forget to... Yeah, let me go back. Did I forget to start the timer? We'll do women on the start timer. There. Alright, you got 2 minutes left for the betting. Now, Burns is going with those 2 ranges. Let's see if he's been able to produce. He's a little bit late. He's going to need that magic number of 7 on gold. However, when you go for archers, you want to start out with usually 4 or 5 on gold as you get up to the Feudal Age, and then add them later, because those villagers will be collecting gold throughout that advance. So you'll have a little bit extra banked up. Now, these scouts are going to be a little bit late. Let's see what they can do. Sean, I would have canceled the bets. Wouldn't be fair to everyone else. I'm sorry. My wall's going up. I'm feeling safe at home. Let's see if I can do any damage, though. important you do damage with scouts, because, you know, you're probably going to want to go archers if you're probably going to want to go archers because they're going to be able to be masked up a lot easier later on. They get much stronger as the game goes on, rather than scouts. Scouts kind of fall off a little bit later, especially with their food cost. So I'm going to try to get a villager. I didn't get that guy. Didn't get this girl. I should have sent all of the scouts to a single villager, rather than taking half the HP off of one and half the HP off of another. But this is a pretty deadly amount of scouts, I would say. At least for the villagers without the archers supporting. Important that Burns gets his blacksmith up right away to get that fletching. The fletching it lets the archers do quite a bit of damage more to the scouts. But I don't want to go in against the archers and the villagers. And here's the spearman for Burns. So far Burns defending from my rush with his archers, and that's perfectly fine. What he should do is he should move around his scout a bit. As you can see, I'm going full into scouts, and I'm mining just a little bit of gold. I think that is for bloodlines. Now this is probably too many farms for a single stable, so I think I was thinking about a second stable. Here I go with second stable. Now you really have to know what you're doing if you want to go second stable scouts, and I don't know what I'm doing half the time when I go second stable scouts. Sometimes because I want to have a little bit of fun, but we talked about how open maps are. When maps are really open, you like to go sometimes 2-3 stables in the scouts in the Feudal Age, just to kick your opponent off of resources. The question is, was that the correct decision? Let's take a look at his map. Woodlines are going to be terrible on this map, however he has done a good job walling on the right side. So I won't be able to hit his woodlines there. I could definitely hit this area, but there are a few spearmen here. And I would say this is probably the wrong decision on my part to go 2 stables because of how CN Burns has walled his map. Just by the fact that he's walled his map, it's probably been a bad decision. He's got this makeshift wall up. And going 2 stable scouts basically is going to prevent me from clicking up to the next stage anytime soon. However, my scouts will be very strong if they can catch these archers out, especially with that bloodlines and +1 armor done. Here comes bloodlines. So if I can catch his archers out, then I'll definitely have a win here. Now, CN Burns should have diagnosed that I went into 2 stable scouts, which he could have seen with the scout here. And maybe he wanted to stay at home with the archers, click up, try to get the crossbow upgrade. But no, he's decided to move out now. And at the same time, this is when I'm moving in with my scouts. So let's see who does more damage in this engagement. Here he comes in with his archers. And I'm going to focus down the spearmen right away. Bloodlines +1 armor means that spearmen really not that effective against scouts. So I get a single villager there. Another spearman comes in. I don't want to fight it under the tower so much. And I'm not doing that much damage. I killed a single villager and he's pumping spearmen. Meanwhile, at home, I'm forced to build a tower. I know I'm going to need more towers, which is why I go up with the mining camp straight away. And CN Burns is definitely doing more damage to me. And I mismicroing pretty badly here. I'm going to lose an extra scout. I'm going to lose some more villagers. All of my farms are idle. This guy's going left. Yeah, T90 farm placement. And he's doing a lot more damage to me. I can't stop scout production at this point. Well, actually, maybe I could have. Maybe I'd have enough scouts. I think I just wanted to be sure. And look at my economy. Most of my economy is idle. So I don't necessarily agree with Burns' decision to move out when he saw my second stable up, but I made another big mistake in moving out with my scouts when I should have came home to defend myself as soon as I saw his archers walk right on through. Especially with how Burns' map is and how he can defend it with just a few spearmen in this area. But if I can clean up these archers, then that'll put me about even in the game, I think. I'm of course going to be later up. Let's see if I can clean up these archers. Here I go. And Burns is going to block off half of the access to these archers by placing them up against this wood line, which is very smart on his part. These guys will go down nice and easy because I can get my scouts around them. These guys very hard to take out. And what you try to do is you take the weak scout and you just move them around like this. Now I moved them a little bit too far away, so now these archers are going to focus down on this scout. And ideally you take the scout and you'd run it away. Just like this. So you can see how hard it is for these archers to get cleaned up, and how Burns is buying more time for himself to get up to the next age. Since I've had so much idle time on my farmers, I'm nowhere near clicking up to the next age. I've got 250 food. You of course want to keep your economy working, so that's why I built this makeshift lumber camp here on the left. Let's take a look at where Burns is at this point. He's lost most of his army. His economy's actually not looking too good either. He's pretty low on food. And not mining a lot of gold. What is he doing? So, look, maybe I did more damage with this raid than I should have. Because Burns should still have his magic number of 7 villagers on gold and still pumping archers from 2 ranges. However, it seems that since he was distracted this whole time, that he hasn't had the chance to redistribute his villages onto the resources properly. Which is good for me. Burns is going to come in again, but he's going to hit hard this time. He's going to bring 4 spearmen with him. And at this point I have a score lead, but this game is fairly close. Both my wood lines are in the forward position. I'm not going to bother to move them, which is risky because these villagers could get picked off, but I feel like I have the military advantage, so I don't need to move them, and moving them will just cause more idle time. Now, let's see. I think I've seen, no. Yeah, I think I've seen his archers. So I'm going to actually go back this time, which would have been the correct decision, despite the spearmen being there as well. I'm going to try and wall in this wood line because I don't want him to idle my wood line at the very least. He's going to idle my farms. I can't prevent that. And also, hopefully I can trap these guys. If I lose a single villager, that's perfectly fine as long as I clean up this army. And Burns is about to click up to the next age. Let's check my resources. Not quite there yet. Let's see. I don't know if I've gotten foraging. I can't remember if it's 3... Yeah, it's 3 plus 3 is foraging, I believe, so I probably have. Definitely the right choice with this amount of scouts. And I will take this engagement because even if we trade off both armies, I need to get my farmers back working. So let's see how this shapes out. 4 spearmen here. Those 4 spearmen are going to take out quite a few scouts. This guy's going to get lucky, going to attack the weak one. And I'm only left with 5 scouts left. So this was a bad engagement for me. I should have waited. I should have waited till I had more scouts. So I'm going to have to build some more scouts to deal with this. And that's going to delay me further up to the next stage. So bad engagement on my part. I should have counted out a little bit better. I'm glad to hear, development, that you don't forget that 7 is the magic number for the gold miners, unless you're Britons or Mayans. Or Turks, I suppose. Although that's debatable. Probably no one in this channel forgets that number. So it looks like me and Burns are up to the same, up to the next age in the same time. Big difference in our strategies. Burns has gone with an archer build, and I have stuck to scouts. I'm not going to transition to anything else. So that means I'm going to have to be forced into knights later on. Here comes the archers. They finally did get through. Now, I could wait to build knights here and save all that food for a much stronger unit. However, I built the scouts going up to the next stage because I want to clean up these archers right now. I don't want them to get away and escape into the fog of war. And Burns is going to find these villages. I was asking for it by putting this forward lumber camp here and losing my army. And once again, bad decision. Should have went with the top archers. The top archers are now going to pick off 3 extra villagers because I haven't gone for them. But I'll clean up this group here. And now I should go up to the top group and finish those guys off. Now, something critical has happened throughout this game. Burns has done more eco damage than I have to him this game, but I've cleaned up Burns' army 3 times throughout this game. Although lost my army once. So this means I'm at an army advantage and an economy disadvantage. And what that always screams to me is go aggressive. Go really aggressive, make use out of that army, because otherwise Burns is going to, build up his economy, and eventually he'll get more army that way, by having a bigger economy. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's going up to a second town center. Don't disagree with that at all. And yeah, I'm quite behind in economy. Let's check my resources. So I've got a lot of farmers up. Good for 2 stable knights. I have not a lot of gold. Not good for 2 stable knights. I need to definitely add more villagers onto gold. And I have a little bit of wood, which you're going to need to reseed the farms anyway. And I have a market here, so I know at this point I'm probably selling resources, get a little extra gold to keep these knights coming out. I've got +2 armor. At this stage, I have a very strong army. I've got a lot of upgrades on these military units here, +1, +2 bloodlines. And my economy is in a bad shape. It's basically designed to do one thing, and that's build knights. It's not built to get town centers out. It's not... Yeah, basically get town centers out. That's what you'd want. It's built to build knights, and that's the only thing it's built to do. So I'm going to try to capitalize on that by bringing this villager forward to build the siege workshop and try to do some damage with these knights. Now, if I was Burns, I saw all these knights and all these scouts, I would probably make sure I was walled. That would be number 1. Wall here, wall here, wall here, wall here, wall here. Use stone walls. Definitely, especially as Koreans. That would be the first thing I'd do. You see the siege workshop going up, you go with a counter siege workshop yourself. In fact, you could even defend with Korean towers. And maybe to counter out the knights, maybe build a few monks. But the first thing you do is you wall. And that's not what Burns is doing. Now, going forward with the siege workshop, I see that he has 2 forward archery ranges and a forward town center. The archery ranges will go down really quickly. So that'll definitely be a target, especially when it's below the hill. And this town center will go down nice and quickly too. So this helps to shape my decision making as to, to build this forward siege workshop. And again, I'm just gearing up my economy to go for, just to add the siege in a bit, so I'm adding a little extra on gold. If I need to, I can always buy a bit of wood. Which looks to be, probably not mining enough of that. Chopping enough. I think the light cav upgrade would definitely be a good upgrade for me at this point. I don't know if I got it this game. But definitely add some oomph to these scouts and will help to deter knights. Help to deter monks. That's what I meant to say. And let's see how this push does. You've probably seen this a lot if you've watched my recorded games. I do love the one town center push with siege. And we've seen throughout a lot of these games how it can be really effective. Now, knights and monks really go well together because knights have such a high HP pool that the monks are able to heal them nicely. And also, if your opponent converts a knight, you could just reconvert it back. So if you've got this mass of knights, go ahead and just add the monastery just for that healing capacity. And certainly Chinese get all the monk tech, so I can transition into them later on if I wanted to get redemption to counter out some of his mangonels. So he's going to go with the siege workshop. That was one of the things I recommended for him. He's also got 2 stable monks. Now the Koreans don't get redemption, and that is something critical to know. You have to know which civilizations get redemption and which don't. That is probably the most important monk technology to know that your civilization has. Oh no! Out of sync, stop replaying. Hey guys, so apparently it seems like the recording ends here because on patch 5.3 you can't watch your previous recordings from other games, which is really dumb. But basically what happens from here is that he's going into monks to counter out my knights. I of course already have scouts. I have a lot of scouts, so the scouts can just snipe off the monks. And then, since I know that my civilization gets atonement, and He's probably not expecting that. Of course, I'm going to get Atonement and try to convert his monks. So together with the scouts and my own monks and my mangonels, which can also kill the monks since he doesn't get redemption, I'm able to take out the monks and then flood in with knights and end to a GG. So I hope you enjoyed most of this game analysis. I thought it was a pretty good game analysis, which is why I wanted to do this little ending here just to finish things up. So I'll see you in the next recorded game analysis, and see you soon.